Welcome to Deep Psyche. We live in a world overflowing with information but starving for understanding, not just of how things work, but of who we truly are. Carl Gustav Jung once warned, "The only real danger that exists is man himself." And when we fail to understand human nature, our own nature, that danger doesn't disappear. It grows quietly, deep within us. Have you ever stopped to wonder, what if you are not who you think you are? What if your thoughts, your choices, even your deepest desires are being shaped by something beneath the surface, ancient, hidden, and largely unconscious? What if there is a silent force within you, guiding your life from the shadows since the day you were born, and you've never even noticed? This is not a conspiracy. This is psychology. And if there's one name you need to know to begin understanding what's truly going on inside your mind, it's Carl Gustav Jung. Jung didn't just study behavior, he explored the invisible architecture of the human psyche. He spoke of the shadow, the parts of yourself you reject, deny, or fear. He uncovered archetypes, universal patterns that shape how you relate, struggle, love, and suffer. And he introduced the idea of the collective unconscious, a vast inner world shared by all of humanity, filled with symbols and stories older than any single life. You might think this has nothing to do with you, but ask yourself, are you tired of making the same mistakes? Of watching yourself sabotage relationships and opportunities? Of feeling like something unseen is pulling you back, even when everything seems fine on the outside? These are not just accidents. They are not bad luck. They are the consequence of a life ruled by the unconscious. And the danger is this: when you're unaware of what's inside you, you'll walk blindfolded through your own mind, tripping over the same emotional patterns again and again. You'll suffer, you'll feel lost, and worst of all, you'll call it fate. But Jung offers something different. He is not just a psychologist, he is a mapmaker of the soul. He went where few dared to go, into the depths of the psyche, where the monsters live, and where transformation begins. What he discovered can change everything you think you know about yourself. Because this is not about facts or theories, it's about seeing, truly seeing. This video is not a biography, it's not a summary, it's a mirror. A mirror that may show you something you've avoided for years, not because you're weak, but because no one ever taught you how to look. Be warned, once you begin to understand Jung's ideas, there's no going back. You'll start to notice the patterns. You'll recognize the parts of yourself you've been afraid to face. You'll see that the greatest enemy in your life was never out there. It was always within. And here's the paradox. That enemy, the hidden force within you, can become your greatest ally. But only if you have the courage to face it. So take a deep breath, clear your mind, and get ready. Because this may be the only explanation of Carl Jung you ever need. And after this, you will never look at yourself the same way again. Carl Jung was not an ordinary psychologist. He was not merely interested in curing symptoms or helping people adapt to a dysfunctional society. He wanted to go deeper, much deeper. Jung's quest was to understand the soul of the human being. He dared to peer into the abyss of the psyche and had the courage to dive in. What he discovered there would forever change the course of psychology. Born in Switzerland in 1875, Jung grew up surrounded by religious symbolism, ritual, and a quiet sense of mystery. From a young age, he sensed that human experience contained something more, something that could not be fully captured by logic or language alone. It's no surprise that he became Sigmund Freud's most brilliant disciple, but it's equally telling that he was the one bold enough to question Freud. While Freud believed the psyche was primarily driven by repressed sexual desire, Jung saw something else, something older, deeper, and more expansive. He saw the unconscious not just as a repository of forgotten trauma, but as a vast inner landscape filled with archetypes, myths, and symbols. He perceived a collective unconscious, a timeless reservoir of human experience that shaped us long before we were born. While Freud looked back into personal history, Jung looked back thousands of years, reaching into the ancestral roots of the human soul. Their split was inevitable. Jung's mission was not just to treat mental illness, but to help human beings reconnect with their essence. He believed the psyche was a living system full of dynamic tensions, light and shadow, logic and feeling, the masculine and the feminine. He believed that suffering was not a flaw in the human condition, but a call to transformation. Through his work, he created an entirely new way of understanding the self. Analytical psycho. A path that doesn't seek to erase what's wrong in you, but to understand it, to integrate it, to make conscious what has been hidden, rejected, or denied. For Jung, the true danger was not suffering, it was unconsciousness. Why does this still matter today? Because modern society remains sick. We're still trapped in destructive patterns. We suppress our emotions, numb our emptiness, and flee from pain. Jung not only foresaw this, he gave us a way through it. He left us a map that leads inward, not a map with easy answers or empty promises, but with something far more valuable: the truth about ourselves, and the courage to face it. One of the most unsettling truths Carl Jung brought to light is this: a part of your mind is not truly yours. Beneath the surface of personal experience, there exists a deep layer of the psyche that is not individual, but shared, a vast ocean of symbols, images, and forces that silently shape your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. This is what Jung called the collective unconscious. And in the next part, we will descend into this mysterious and ancient realm. You might believe that your thoughts, fears, and longings are completely unique, shaped by your upbringing, your culture, your memories. But Jung challenged that belief. He showed us that beneath your personal mind lies a deeper structure, one that predates you, yet influences you at every moment. Picture your mind as a small island. Everything you've lived through, your memories, traumas, and personal history, belongs to that island. But beneath it lies a vast, unseen ocean. And this ocean connects you to all of humanity. It's filled with ancient symbols, patterns, and archetypes, timeless forces that shaped our ancestors and continue to live within us today. This is not a metaphor. The collective unconscious is a psychic reality. It emerges in dreams, in myths, in religions, in the stories and films that stir something deep within us. That's why cultures across the world, separated by time, geography, and language, created remarkably similar myths of heroes, monsters, sages, trials, and redemption. These myths are not coincidences. They are reflections of the inner architecture of the human soul. According to Jung, every emotion, every deep instinct, is influenced by an archetypal pattern. When you fear being abandoned, when you long to belong, when you strive to become more than you are not alone. You are walking paths carved out over millennia. Ignoring the collective unconscious is like pretending gravity doesn't exist. You can deny it, but it still acts on you. It shows up in your relationships, in your compulsions, in the stories you keep living without knowing why. You're not just haunted by your own past, you are haunted by the past of all humanity. So what exactly lives within this collective unconscious? Jung gave them names. He called them archetypes, universal forms embedded in all of us. They shape the way we think, feel, and act. And among them, one is the most ignored, the most feared, and the most dangerous. It is your shadow, the dark side of your personality that you try to deny, suppress, or hide. But it watches you, and until you face it, it will quietly rule your life. In the next part, we'll explore the shadow, what it is, how it operates, and why meeting it might be the most important moment of your life. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for being here. Have you ever done something that left you with deep regret? Something you couldn't even explain afterward? Have you ever lashed out in anger and then thought, I don't even know what came over me? Or felt envy, pride, jealousy, or resentment, and instead of confronting those feelings, you ignored them, justified them, or buried them? If so, then you've already met your shadow. You just didn't have the courage to truly look at it. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries a dark side within, a hidden, repressed part of the self made up of everything we don't want to admit exists in us. Your most shameful impulses, your unacceptable desires, your arrogance, your rage, your neediness, your cruelty, your vanity. These are not anomalies. They live within you. And the more you try to suppress them, the stronger they become. The shadow is not evil. It is simply everything you've been told you're not supposed to be. It's what you had to hide to be loved, what you had to kill in yourself to be accepted. The child who was scolded for being too loud, the teenager who was silenced for being too emotional, the adult who learned to smile while crumbling inside. And here is the difficult truth. Everything you refuse to face in your shadow will begin to control you from the dark. The shadow doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It disguises itself. It slips into your judgments of others, your unexplained outbursts, your paralyzing shame, the self-doubt that whispers you're not enough, the habits that ruin your life just when things are going well. And the more convinced you are that you're a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes. Because when you disown your envy, pride, or anger, you begin projecting them onto others. You see the darkness always out there, in them, never in you. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In other words, if you don't acknowledge your shadow, it will quietly script your life. You'll find yourself stuck in the same cycles, choosing the same painful relationships, sabotaging the very things you claim to want. You'll run from love, from success, from your own potential, not because the world is against you, but because somewhere inside, you believe you don't deserve more. But there is another way. You don't need to destroy your shadow. You need to integrate it, because within that darkness lies immense energy, the same energy that can ruin your life, if denied, can also heal and transform you, if embraced. Your shadow holds your raw power, your hidden vitality, your lost wholeness. But reclaiming it requires courage. It requires stepping into the territory you've spent your life avoiding, the forgotten, repressed, uncomfortable parts of yourself. And it is in this confrontation that the true journey of self-knowledge begins. Jung called this journey individuation. It's not a quick fix. It's not easy, but it is essential, because it's the only path to becoming whole. As long as you live in fragments, divided between the mask you show the world and the parts you hide from yourself, you will live in inner conflict. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit in, pleasing their parents, conforming to culture, obeying invisible rules. They mold themselves. They numb themselves. They shrink. But beneath all of that, something aches, an emptiness, a quiet sense that something is missing, not externally, but within. Carl Jung knew exactly what that emptiness was. He called it the absence of individuation, the absence of becoming who you truly are. Individuation is not trendy self-help. It's not about becoming your best self or manifesting abundance or any of the comfortable slogans sold to avoid the real work. Individuation, in Carl Jung's view, is something much deeper, brutal, profound, and transformative. It is the sacred process of becoming a whole human being. It begins with a confrontation, with your own shadow, with the disowned parts of yourself, with the truths you've spent a lifetime avoiding. It is the inner reconciliation of opposites, light and dark, masculine and feminine, strength and vulnerability. It is not about polishing the mask you wear in society. It is about breaking that mask entirely, what Jung called the persona, and discovering who lives behind it. To individuate is to die to who you thought you were, to let go of illusions and be reborn into something more real, more whole. It is the collapse of the ego, the dismantling of identity, the shock of discovering that you are neither as noble as you hoped nor as terrible as you feared. It is realizing you are both. You are the sinner and the saint. You are capable of great kindness and of great cruelty. You are human, and that means being vast, contradictory, and unfinished. And here's the truth no one wants to hear. This process hurts deeply because it demands everything. It asks you to let go of the lies that once helped you survive. It calls you to stop blaming others and take radical responsibility for your life. It challenges you to stop performing for approval and start living for authenticity. Individuation does not happen in one glorious moment. It unfolds over time, in crisis, in heartbreak, in collapse. Every time an identity breaks, every time a belief dies, a seed of something new is planted. But for that seed to grow, you must endure doubt, discomfort, and chaos. Jung once said, "The encounter with the self is, by nature, a defeat for the ego." And he was right. Most people avoid this path. They choose comfort. They choose the familiar pain of the known over the terrifying possibility of real change. But for those with the courage to step into the dark, something extraordinary happens. Freedom. Not the superficial freedom of doing whatever you want, but the deep inner freedom of no longer being at war with yourself. When you integrate what you once rejected, when you listen to what you once silenced, when you finally begin to trust your soul, you become who you truly are. Not perfect, not polished, but whole. And the soul speaks. It has always been speaking, just not in the language of logic. It speaks in symbols, in images, in dreams. Jung knew this. While the modern world laughs at dreams, calling them random static or psychological leftovers, Jung saw something else entirely. To him, dreams were not meaningless. They were messages, encoded, mysterious, symbolic, but always purposeful. Every night when you sleep, the unconscious awakens, and it begins to speak. It sends images, scenes, archetypes, all designed to pull you back toward balance, toward wholeness. When the conscious mind strays too far from the center, the dream corrects it. That's why you dream of falling when you're losing control. That's why your teeth fall out in your sleep when you're feeling powerless. That's why symbols repeat across dreams. They are not coincidences. They are calls. Dreams are invitations, directions, sometimes even warnings. But they do not speak in the voice of reason. They speak in the voice of the soul. And the soul does not speak in sentences. It speaks in symbols. And now, we arrive at one of Carl Jung's greatest legacies, the study of archetypal symbolism. Lions, snakes, forests, doors, tunnels, mothers, mirrors, shadows. These are not random dream images. They are ancient voices speaking in symbols. They are fragments of your psyche, pieces of your soul rising to the surface. Each carries meaning, each carries energy, each serves a function. A house may reflect your inner world. A snake may whisper of transformation, death, and rebirth. A ladder might beckon you upward towards spirit or downward into the depths of the unconscious. A mirror may show you the face you've refused to see, the reflection of your shadow. To understand this symbolic language is to relearn the oldest language of all, the language of the soul. Jung believed this language is not optional. To ignore your symbols is to sever yourself from your center. And when you stray from the center, you drift into crisis. You become anxious, depressed, lost. Not because life has abandoned you, but because you have abandoned the voice within. Dreams are your compass, symbols are your map. To ignore them is to wander blindfolded through a maze. Do you want to know who you truly are? Do you want to understand why you repeat the same patterns? Why certain fears haunt you? Why certain people or stories keep returning? Look at your dreams. Write them down. Reflect. Face the symbols you once dismissed. They carry answers your conscious mind could never invent. But dreams are only the beginning. There is something deeper, older, more powerful. A force that also speaks in symbols, but acts through structure. Jung called them archetypes. They are the invisible characters of your psyche, the secret cast of the inner drama, the ones truly directing your story. Have you ever acted in a way that felt foreign, as if something else had taken over? Have you repeated emotional patterns you can't trace the origin of? Always falling into the same story, the same wound, the same pain? Jung knew the answer. These are not accidents. You are living under the influence of archetypes. They are not things you learned. They are psychic blueprints you inherited, structures of the collective unconscious, ancient as humanity itself. They shape your behavior, your emotions, your longings, your fears. They are not passive ideas. They are living forces. When an archetype takes hold of the psyche, it possesses you. It drives your decisions. It writes your script. It pulls you into relationships and patterns you don't understand. And all the while you think it's you, but it isn't. It's the hero. It's the martyr. It's the child. It's the mother. It's the shadow. It's the anima or the animus. Each has its own will, its own energy. And when you live unconsciously, these energies take over. That's why some people burn themselves out, saving others, not from love, but because the hero archetype is devouring them from within. To reclaim your life, you must learn to see these forces, to name them, to relate to them consciously, because what you do not face in yourself will act through you, and call it destiny. Those who live for approval, who tremble before the possibility of rejection, may still be carrying the pain of the wounded child. And those who seem magnetized by chaos, drawn repeatedly to destruction and darkness, are often ruled by an unintegrated shadow. But let's be clear, these forces are not enemies. They are forgotten allies. When left unconscious, they enslave. When brought into the light, they become keys, portals to the self. To awaken is to start listening, to begin asking, who is speaking within me? Is it the hero, the victim, the orphan, the trickster? Each moment of reactivity, each attraction or aversion, may be an archetype calling for attention. When you start to notice these patterns in your relationships, your impulses, your dreams, you stop being a puppet. You start becoming the author of your own myth. And this is where Jung's work becomes not only useful, but urgent. Because never before have we been so far from ourselves. We live amidst relentless noise, infinite distractions. Our gaze is pulled outward, toward approval, performance, comparison. But inwardly, we are starving. The result is a quiet epidemic, a collapse of meaning, a spiritual crisis in disguise masquerading as stress, anxiety, depression. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into why Jung's vision, crafted nearly a century ago, feels like a direct commentary on modern life. And if this speaks to something in you, a quiet ache, a silent recognition, you'll want to explore Beyond the Shadow, my ebook, where I guide you through these Jungian insights and offer tools to navigate your own inner landscape. The link is in the pinned comment, because here's the paradox of our age. We have access to everything, yet we are more lost than ever. Modernity promised freedom, but delivered anxiety. It promised connection, but left us drowning in comparison. And through the noise, a question cries out within millions. Who am I really? This is the question Jung devoted his life to. He offered no shallow answers, no glittering affirmations or sugar-coated mantras. What he offered was far more daring, a path back to the soul. He foresaw what we are now living, the collapse of identity beneath the weight of the persona, the social mask worn so tightly we forget there is even a face beneath it. He warned that ignoring the shadow makes us prey to the very forces we deny, that dismissing dreams severs our lifeline to the unconscious, that mocking symbols destroys the sacred map of the soul. Jung saw it all, decades before it came to pass, and now we live what he described. Success that feels hollow, achievements that do not heal, relationships that feel fragile, shallow, disposable, young people in existential despair, anxieties and disorders that medicine tries to silence but cannot understand. Jung didn't offer escape. He offered integration. He didn't promise comfort. He offered truth. And through that truth, a path, narrow, dark, but redemptive, toward becoming whole. The modern world sold us a lie, the lie that we can live on the surface. But the soul, that quiet and unyielding force within, will not remain silent for long. When it calls out, it does not ask for likes, approval, or fleeting praise. It asks for meaning, for depth, for integration. Jung was not a guide for times of comfort. He was a guide for times of collapse, for times like now. Because when the world outside loses its meaning, When status, success, and control dissolve like smoke in the wind, the only place left to turn is inward. And this inward journey, it is terrifying. For inside, you will not only find the light you long for, you will find your monsters, your traumas, your masks, the painful truths you've buried deep within yourself. But, and this is the crucial part, you will also find something no one can give you, your true self. You will not heal by regurgitating ready-made phrases, nor by seeking shortcuts. But if you have the courage to face yourself, to strip away the illusions that have kept you safe, to dive into the process Jung called inner transformation, then yes, there is hope. And this is what this video is here to remind you of. To remind you that there is a path, that your pain has meaning, that you are not broken, you are simply fragmented, and you can rebuild yourself. But what does that mean in practice? How do you take the first step in this journey back to yourself? How do you move from the theory to real transformation? In the final part, we will close this dive with a raw and necessary truth. We will show you why this video could be the turning point your soul has been silently craving. You spent your whole life trying to fit in, protect yourself, and belong. You pretended to be strong when you were, in fact, in pieces. You smiled while everything inside you screamed for help. At some point along the way, you forgot who you were. You forgot your essence. You forgot your mystery. You forgot your creative chaos. You forgot your soul. But now, something is stirring within you. Something is waking up. It's no coincidence that you are here, listening to these words. Jung believed that nothing happens by chance. Not even the smallest of encounters is truly accidental. Every moment is an expression of the unconscious, trying to reveal something hidden. Perhaps this video is just that, a call to stop running, a call to stop lying to yourself, a call to abandon the surface and plunge deep into the depths of your psyche. What Jung offers is not easy to hear. It requires courage, it requires pain, it demands responsibility, but in that pain lies liberation. The moment you realize you are not broken, just unconscious, you reclaim your power. You gain the power to transform, to integrate, to heal. You don't need to have it all figured out right now. You don't need all the answers. Just the courage to say, enough. Enough of hiding. Enough of pretending. Once you see the truth, everything changes. If this spoke to you, comment below. What part of your shadow are you ready to face? Speaking it is the first step to freedom.